Good morning or afternoon, depending where you are joining us today in the world. I'm Dan Fearnley, and I'm the sales director here at Virtasant. And I hope you all got a cup of tea or coffee to hand so you can sit back and enjoy the next hour. We've got a cracking session for you lined up. And the aim is pretty straightforward. We want to give you, as finance leaders, some practical tools and insights on how to get a handle on your cloud spend. So let's take a look at the running order. Cool. If you could just move us on to the next slide, that'd be good. Right, perfect. So first up, I'll be having a chat with Steve Mitchell about the challenges he's faced with cloud spend as the CFO of Redgate Software. Then I'll hand you over to my colleague, Mike Boudreau, who will be diving into why FinOps should be right at the top of your agenda and how to get started. Following that, we'll have a view from the front line with Mike Rosenberg, who is a FinOps leader at Nubank and a FinOps Foundation ambassador. He'll discuss about bridging the gap between finance and engineering. And finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A and some closing thoughts. So please do put any questions you've got into the chat, and we'll hopefully come to those towards the end. Okay, right, so let's get cracking. So first of all, I'm delighted to welcome Steve Mitchell. Steve is the Chief Financial Officer at Redgate Software. And rather than start with a presentation, I've got a few questions lined up for Steve on the big challenges finance executives are facing with cloud costs. So let's get started. Good to see you, Steve. So just to kick things off, could you just give us a quick overview of Redgate's business and your role as CFO?
Yeah, hi Dan, it's good to be here, and hi everybody. So as Dan said, I'm Steve Mitchell. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Redgate, and we're a B2B software company. We've been around over 25 years now, and our software helps organizations get the most out of their databases wherever that data is held. So that includes monitoring the performance of databases for your customers and your colleagues, ensuring your data is secure, and enabling businesses to deploy changes rapidly and robustly to their databases. So that includes customers who have data held in public cloud environments, in private cloud, where they've got dedicated space in third-party data centers or in their own data centers. And in many cases, a combination of all three. And of course, as well as supporting our customers in using our software, we've got our own internal applications and databases, and we're making decisions about how to handle and store those as well.
Excellent. Great introduction. So when did cloud spend first become a noticeable line item that required your attention or governance?
Public cloud costs probably became material for us about 3 years ago. They continue to grow, and as we continue to grow as a business and also start to sell more of our software on a SaaS basis in the future, then I'm expecting that our use of public cloud is going to continue to grow pretty steeply over the next few years.
Okay. And what were some of the early pain points or surprises you encountered with cloud costs, either from budgeting, forecasting, or a visibility perspective?
Yeah, I think the transition to public cloud, and I've seen this in previous businesses I've been in as well, is you tend to be moving from an environment where either you've got your own data centers and you've spent a fixed amount of capex and that sees you through for a period of time, or you've got private cloud environments where historically it's been a fairly fixed cost month on month, and suddenly you move, and often businesses move into a public cloud environment and start off on a pay-as-you-go basis, and that sort of feels great when we do that because we're only paying for exactly what we use, and that was a huge message from the public cloud providers over the years. But also it just means from a finance perspective, a lack of predictability, to a degree, a lack of control, and to a certain extent, certainly for us, when we first started using public cloud in a meaningful way, a lack of visibility as well into what was driving those costs, and therefore, I guess, even more nervousness about the variability. So while the technical aspects and some of the benefits around the investment, the huge investment that the public cloud providers have put into their offering is all great and is an enabler for the growth of our business and what we can do for our customers. From a finance perspective, it certainly has those issues around kind of variability, lack of visibility, lack of control.
And do you feel, as a finance leader, you've got the right tools or level of access now to understand cloud spend? If not, kind of what's missing?
I think we're getting closer. Certainly, public cloud pricing can be quite complex, and the cloud providers themselves provide a lot of tools to help you make the right technical choices when you're setting up and managing environments and so on, but not necessarily the tools that make it easy to see the cost implications of what you're doing before you do those things. So I think in our business, we've developed, working in conjunction with our internal IT team as well as our software engineers, we've developed to a point where we've got a bit of a better understanding of what's going on, but things still change quite rapidly. So decisions we make 1 month or 1 quarter, might not be optimal decisions a quarter or 6 months down the line.
Yeah. So where are you then in that journey of FinOps and controlling your cloud costs? And what does it kind of look like in practice on whether it's a week by week, month by month kind of perspective within Redgate?
So if I go back a couple of years, we were using public cloud in a pretty uncontrolled way. So in order to empower our software engineers to do great things for our customers, then that translated at that point into, hey, they can spin up environments whenever they want. They can do whatever they think is needed based on their own personal choice and the functionality they think they need. In those cloud environments. So that meant at the time our costs were increasing fairly rapidly and were unpredictable. And there was no ownership because we didn't have the visibility really of the costs at any detailed level. There wasn't any natural ownership, and that's one of the things that we've sort of focused on. I think if there's no understanding of the costs being generated by their activities within, say, those engineering teams, and there's no budget or accountability around it, then hey, being engineers, they will just choose the gold-plated thing that they know absolutely gives them everything they may ever want. So now we have more visibility, we have more accountability. I guess if I liken it to my home life, it's a little bit like they're spending it out of their pocket money rather than out of some unseen parent budget.
Yeah.
So that leads to better conversations. And I think the other thing that we've done in the last couple of years is work really closely with our internal IT team. And unfortunately for me, that team for a couple of years sat within my team. So while I'm not a technical expert, I was actually able to get a lot closer to understanding the dynamics, and even I sort of took an AWS foundation course just to understand the basics of how it worked and the pricing models and so on. So a combination of those things means we feel more under control, I would say, and a bit better visibility, but probably still not optimized. So I would say we're some way through the journey, but still with a way to go.
Excellent. Well, last question before we move on to the next bit. And you've touched on it already because like you said, you've managed an IT team as a finance leader already. But one of the themes that will come through later on, particularly in Mike's part, is about building collaboration and the importance. So how did you go about building that collaboration between finance, engineering, IT, and I guess the business as well around managing that cloud spend?
I think certainly the collaboration between sort of the finance team and the IT team was pretty key, and using the IT team, I guess, to work alongside the finance team in discussions with the engineering team, so that we had a sort of rounded view in those discussions, and using our internal IT team as a little bit of a sense check as well, because as I said before, much as I've gotten a little bit closer to these things, I absolutely wouldn't be any sort of technical expert. So that collaboration, I think, has been a key enabler for us. And then I think the other thing we can do that the collaboration has enabled between all three of the functions is the thinking about longer term requirements. So, we know we can get discounts if we commit to 12 months or 36 months, say, of resource on certain things with the public cloud providers. So starting to force ourselves to think about our requirements in a bit more longer term can help us move forward. I think the final thing is just getting a recognition that we don't know it all. So we've got some internal knowledge now, but absolutely, even in much larger organizations than Redgate, and we're just under 600 people, but in much bigger organizations, even there, you can definitely benefit, I think, from external expertise and people that do this thing for a living and can come and help you optimize your costs. Once you've taken the really easy pieces that you can internally, there's still a lot left to go after, and that's the position we're in now, I think.
Brilliant. Cheers, Steve. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks for your feedback and sharing your insights with us. So that gives us a perfect lead into our next session. I would like to introduce you to my colleague Mike Boudreau, who's just joined the webinar there. Mike's going to build on what Steve was saying and get into the nitty-gritty of why FinOps matters for finance executives. So, Mike, over to you. Cheers.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, all, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Boudreau. I'm the head of FinOps delivery at Virtasant, where I help our customers achieve savings more quickly. I've been working in cost optimization on the cloud since 2014 and have helped customer teams composed of IT, business, and finance professionals save hundreds of millions of dollars on the cloud. Today, we're specifically focusing on the critical role of finance executives, the CFOs, VPs of finance, finance analysts, IT financial managers, those of you whose primary goal is to accurately budget, forecast, and report costs. The shift to the cloud presents incredible opportunities for businesses, but also significant financial challenges for you. In fact, we recently conducted a poll with the CFO Leadership Council asking, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to public cloud costs? In that poll, the top challenges cited by finance executives included increases in costs, the lack of visibility into cloud spend, followed by departmental accountability and inaccurate forecasting. Those are some significant challenges, and as finance professionals, your role is pivotal in addressing them to ensure cloud investments align with business objectives and to manage the financial health of your cloud strategy. So what we're going to cover today will provide a clear roadmap to address these challenges, unlock substantial savings, and empower you to drive a culture of cost accountability in your organization. So let's get started. For businesses, the cloud offers immense agility and innovation, and it can scale quickly to meet business demands. However, this often comes with a new financial reality for finance executives that shift from predictable capital expenditures to variable operational expenditures. In the traditional IT world, you would approve a large capital purchase for servers and other equipment, and that cost was fixed for several years. In the cloud's pay-as-you-go model, OpEx can escalate rapidly without diligent oversight. Every new cloud service, every server left running, every unoptimized bit of storage contributes to this operational spend. And this isn't inherently bad, right? It's the price of agility, but it can become a significant financial drain if not managed properly. And this is where FinOps becomes crucial. So what is FinOps? I'll leave the definition on the screen and just talk to it more generally, and soon we'll be diving into the FinOps framework and some of its core principles. FinOps is not just about tracking expenses after the fact. It's a proactive discipline designed to bring financial accountability and predictability to this variable spend model. It directly addresses the challenge of unpredictable cloud spend. For finance execs, this means actively identifying and systematically eliminating waste, leading to substantial and, importantly, ongoing savings, but of course, not at the expense of performance or business growth or security. Just a quick note here, you'll notice that the definition of FinOps is attributed to the FinOps Foundation. We'll provide some more details about them later. So your role as a finance executive is pivotal. The FinOps Foundation emphasizes that finance teams should work closely with FinOps practitioners to understand historic billing data and build accurate forecasting models. By championing FinOps, you can instill a culture of cost consciousness across the entire organization. And this involves creating clear visibility, who is spending what on which services and for what business purposes. When teams understand their consumption and its financial impact, they are empowered to become accountable. This isn't about pointing fingers, it's about sharing that responsibility. This direct line of sight from their actions to the associated costs contributes directly to bottom line savings by reducing overspending and improving resource efficiency. And your leadership here ensures that cloud investments are not just technologically sound, but also financially prudent. So, the FinOps framework. It's built on a set of core principles that guide how organizations manage their cloud costs. These principles, collaboration, ownership, accessible and timely reporting, centralized guidance, value-driven decisions, and leveraging the variable cost model. These are your foundational toolkit for slashing cloud bills. While all of them are equally important, today we'll focus on two areas that are particularly relevant to the finance leader: ownership, aka allocation, and reporting. And then we'll follow up by discussing how allocation and reporting work hand in hand with collaboration to save on your cloud costs. So one of the biggest challenges for finance teams, as highlighted by both the FinOps Foundation and our poll results, is identifying unallocated spend. If you don't know who is spending what, it's impossible to manage it effectively. So precise cost allocation is the first step. This means tagging resources meticulously and attributing cloud costs to specific departments or projects or products, or whatever cost centers that you track. This reveals exactly where your cloud budget is going, and any unallocated costs can then be easily identified and investigated and attributed. Once you have that granular visibility, you can implement showback or chargeback mechanisms. Both of these strategies make savings more tangible to everyone. When someone sees a line item on their P&L for cloud services, or when a project team is aware of the cost of their development environment, they are far more motivated to seek out and implement cost-saving measures within their own domains. They know their efforts to right-size, terminate unused resources, or choose more cost-effective services will be recognized and will contribute not just to their budget, but also to the overall financial health of the company. This transparency is key to unlocking significant departmental savings and facilitating showback and chargeback, which directly supports the finance exec's goal to increase financial accountability. So now that you're allocating costs to the appropriate cost center, you can start building reports that track data over time. The FinOps principle of accessible and timely reporting is paramount for finance. You can't manage what you can't measure. So setting up some unified dashboards that pull data from all your cloud providers and potentially third-party tools will provide near real-time insights into cloud spending patterns. These aren't just static monthly reports. These are dynamic tools that allow finance leaders and budget owners to dig into the data. For example, you'll be able to spot anomalies. So did a cost for a particular service spike unexpectedly? And you can also track budget versus actuals, which is something that the finance teams that I've worked with are always asking for. This proactive approach, driven by transparent data, means you can address potential overruns before they blow a hole in your budget. It turns raw billing data into actionable intelligence and directly highlights waste and concrete opportunities for cost reduction. And this aligns perfectly with the finance team's objective to report actual costs and trends and to normalize spend predictability. In the images on this slide, you can see how reports and dashboards can quickly give you a picture of your cloud data. In the image on the top right, a quick glance will show you how business units are currently tracking against their budgets and what their projections look like for the next several months. On the lower left, you can quickly see where you stand with your year-to-date and fiscal year budgets and your forecasts. these types of reports are updated daily, and they're incredibly useful in managing your cloud costs and conveying a story to the teams that you'll need to work with, because FinOps is fundamentally a collaborative practice. No single department can optimize cloud costs in isolation. So the next core principle that we're going to discuss is teams need to collaborate. For finance executives, fostering this kind of collaboration is key to overcoming a common challenge, and that frustration that arises when accountability is distributed, but there's no clear communication or shared goals. Think of it like this. As finance, you understand the budgets, the financial targets and procurement processes, and the overall financial health of the company. You bring the why cost optimization is critical. You're focused on costs going out and budget maintenance and accurate forecasting. For IT and engineering teams, they hold the technical expertise. They know how the cloud services are configured, what's possible in terms of optimization, like right sizing and auto scaling, and the technical implications of any changes made to cloud resources. They bring the how. And for business and product owners, they understand the value derived from the products or the services that are supported by the cloud infrastructure. So how a particular application supports customers or generates revenue or meets strategic objectives. They bring the what needs to run and why it's important. When these three groups operate in silos, inefficiencies thrive. Engineers might over-provision resources to ensure performance without fully understanding the cost impact. Business units might request new services without a clear ROI. And finance might see rising bills but lack the technical context to suggest specific savings. The real magic here happens when these teams communicate and collaborate regularly. Through joint reviews, shared dashboards, and open dialogue, they can collectively identify redundant services or licenses. They can optimize resource configurations based on actual need versus perceived need, and make informed trade-offs between the cost and performance and features, and ultimately ensure that cloud spend is always aligned with business value. This collaborative approach is crucial for uncovering those hidden savings opportunities that might otherwise be missed by any single team. And it directly addresses the finance executive's need to connect cloud initiatives with business objectives. So now you've got all this collaboration, which is vital, but it needs to be supported by clear governance so that you can maintain fiscal oversight and enforce cost-saving policies. Implementing well-defined governance structures and policies around cloud usage ensures that cost optimization isn't just a one-time project, but becomes an ongoing embedded discipline. And governance provides the guardrails here that the finance leader often feels are missing to achieve that. A couple of examples of effective governance include enforcing a consistent tagging policy so that all resources can be accurately allocated, and documenting clear guidelines on adhering to best practices in the cloud. For example, when and how to downsize or terminate underutilized resources. These structures provide the fiscal oversight necessary to maintain long-term control and continuously drive down cloud costs. For the finance executive, robust governance is essential for maintaining budget control and ensuring that the financial benefits of cloud are maximized and sustained. Now that we understand what FinOps is and why it's important, let's talk about how to take advantage of what FinOps offers for your organization. Getting started with FinOps doesn't have to be an overwhelming multi-year initiative. You can actually achieve tangible results and build momentum with some practical first steps. In the beginning, this is going to be more about demonstrating early value, which is going to be crucial for gaining broader organizational buy-in. there are almost always immediate opportunities to cut cloud costs with relatively minimal effort. And these are going to be your quick wins. They can generate significant initial savings, often within weeks. And for finance leaders, these wins are powerful proof points for the value of FinOps. And you can see several examples here in both the list on the top left and the screenshot on the lower left. And then in the image on the upper right, the graph shows that even though VM usage is increasing for this customer, they're maintaining that upper 70s to 80% discount efficiency by purchasing more reservations and savings plans. Quick wins like these not only reduce costs immediately, but also demonstrate the power of active cloud financial management and build enthusiasm for deeper, more systematic optimization efforts. Once you've plucked the low-hanging fruit, it's not advancing. It's time to establish a more structured, sustainable FinOps practice. This starts with setting clear, measurable objectives. So using the SMART framework is particularly useful here. And then alongside these objectives, define some key performance indicators that are particularly meaningful for the finance team. These help you track progress and quantify the financial impact of your FinOps initiatives and continuously refine your cost reduction strategies. For example, tracking the percent reduction in year-over-year spend, or again, your budget versus actual variance. And while you may start with these standard KPIs, eventually you'll work your way up to more complex ones like unit cost economics. This is a more advanced but incredibly powerful KPI that ties cloud spend directly to business output. Think like cost per order or cost per active user. This is a really powerful way to communicate effectively between departments and to tie cloud costs to business outcomes. And you'll hear more about that later from our next guest. So tracking these KPIs will clearly demonstrate the ROI of your FinOps efforts in dollars saved and improved financial predictability. And that will directly address the core goals of the finance executive. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding why FinOps is so critical for finance executives in this OpEx-driven cloud world, to the core principles that provide your toolkit, the importance of collaboration, and practical steps to start realizing savings. So now let's talk about your path forward to achieving sustainable cloud cost efficiency. This is the beginning of your journey. The cloud is always changing and service providers are always releasing new features or new services, so continuous learning is vital. To keep up with everything that's going on, I have a few resources here that I highly recommend exploring. First, the FinOps Foundation at finops.org. This is the central hub for all things FinOps, so make sure you check that out. Super valuable community that's very willing to share information. And then also each major cloud provider, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, etc., they offer a suite of tools and detailed documentation to help you understand and manage your costs on their platforms. So those resources will provide ongoing education and inspiration as you develop your FinOps practice. So now you've seen the roadmap to effectively reduce your cloud costs and the significant tangible savings that a maturing FinOps practice can deliver. As a finance executive, you are in a prime position to champion this change and drive substantial financial benefits for your organization. You have two excellent paths forward. The DIY approach, where you'll have to set up all the components like the mapping of resources and the rest of the FinOps practice. And in this approach, it can be a very effective approach, especially if you have enthusiastic internal champions. If you're looking to accelerate your journey, ensure you're leveraging all the best practices from day one and maximize every potential saving. Our team at Virtasant, we specialize in FinOps. We live and breathe this every day. So you can be up and running quickly and have access to all the data that you need. There are lots of benefits to this route, but I'm not here to sell, so I'll just leave them all up so you can read them as I close out. So that wraps it up for me today. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope this has provided you with a clear and actionable roadmap. Please feel free to reach out with any further questions or if you'd like to discuss how Virtasant can support your FinOps journey. And with that, I'll turn it over to our next guest, Mike Rosenberg, Senior Director of Engineering at Nubank and FinOps Foundation Ambassador. Mike?
All right, thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate that. Excellent segment. Good day, everybody. My name is Mike Rosenberg, and a little bit about my background. The first part of my career, I was an IT engineer. I transitioned over to accounting and finance, and have been a controller and a CFO at small organizations in the Midwest of the United States. And the latest iteration of my career, I kind of sit between the debits and credits people and the bits and bytes people and help them translate their wants, needs, and help them get along and work and play well with one another. I've been in the cloud FinOps space about 10 years, starting with Allstate, then with the Cloud Economics Group at AWS. And I'm currently at Nubank, a large fintech based out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And what I want to show you about Nubank is we're still growing at a rapid pace. The slide you're seeing in front of you is from our first quarter 2025 investor relations deck. And we're still growing at the rate of roughly 5 million customers per quarter. And the reason I wanted to point that out is we're scaling up, and it's a great opportunity for cloud costs to get out of control. And it also puts the focus of engineers on wanting to work on new features, functions, and capabilities as we grow more products and into more markets. But the thing that's really important on this slide, which is also from our first quarter investor relations deck, is I want you to pay attention to the orange line that you see. That's the efficiency ratio. It's a cost per revenue calculation. And having one of the best efficiency ratios in the banking industry worldwide allows us to profitably serve customers who are mostly previously unbanked. And in Latin America, where our three markets are that we serve, more than half the population this very day are still unbanked. And they have a lot of small transactions and very low balances. So because of that, we have a laser-like focus on our cloud cost to serve. And having that low cost to serve allows us to charge lower fees to our customers who are coming from the unbanked community. And that low cost to serve, as you would expect, is both a competitive advantage for us and a strategic weapon. The cloud cost, as a proportion of the cost to serve, is quite material, and actively managing it helps us deliver on our strategy. One of the things that's really important for us building a relationship with the engineers at Nubank is, for us, cost is job 5. We never ask our engineers to put cost in front of the other 4 categories that you see above it, because quite frankly, they're more important. If your bank isn't secure, you pack it up and go home. Got to follow the laws. Stable systems are less expensive to operate, and they give your engineers a better work-life balance, and you got to deliver that amazing customer service. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And it helps to build credibility with the engineers to have a hierarchy like this that aligns with your company's specific overarching objectives. And it helps to enforce, good product development and engineering priorities. Let me pop that up. And what's important is we're getting our engineers to link their work to business outcomes. And it's fair to ask, what are the benefits of a code release? Is it raising revenue? Is it reducing customer churn? Is it increasing margin? And you can ask that as a financial professional of your engineering management and use that data, because you'll be able to take that change in your cost to serve and compare that against any of the metrics on the screen and evaluate if the goals that you want are being achieved. If a code change is not creating business value, or it's not in support of a regulatory requirement or fixing a bug, You can now have a data-driven conversation about should we roll back the code? Is it delivering the business value we need? And that's important because it takes the loud voices out of the room when you can bring the data. And for us, the biggest benefit at Nubank was it changes the conversation from one that was about cost reduction into one that's primarily focused on business value creation. And that's where, to me, that's where the magic is in FinOps, is thinking about the business value you can create for your enterprise. So with engineers and finance, one of the things I think is very important is we work to educate. I'm sorry, clicked one too many. We work to educate our engineers as to the income statement and their location on the income statement, whether it be cost of goods or SG&A. All of our engineers take an Accounting 101 course as a part of onboarding and Cloud FinOps course. The FinOps Foundation can help you by providing persona-based education training as well as certifications. And a lot of times it's not that the engineers don't know about cost, it's just not in their focus and it's not in their primary domain of operations. So give them that accounting basic education, and I think you'll get a lot of benefit from it. And one thing that's also important for us is that avoids finance folks giving the appearance of overstepping their boundaries into the realm of hands-on keyboard engineering. Engineers love a challenge. If you have a unit cost to serve or you have gross margin targets, you can create an outcome-oriented constraint that does not specifically prescribe how the engineering gets done. And you can put that into people's or business units' OKRs and targets and objectives as a part of their yearly planning. I think it's, again, really important to approach it from that perspective, and that keeps you from overstepping your boundaries and making the engineers feel like you're crowding their space. And the last item on here is one I want to point out because it ties back to the first item on the list. Engineers love to focus on new features, functions, and capabilities. What's new and exciting? How can I move forward in the market, help my company grow? There's a aspect of engineering I like to call elephant work. And to me, there's glory and dignity in following the elephants in the parade. Most people look on the ground and they see what they see and they step right over it and they move along. For me, I see basis points of gross margin hiding in inefficient architectures, poorly written code, bad operational procedures, and weak or no IT governance, especially when it comes to storage. That remediation work that leads to more stable, secure, and profitable systems should get the same level of public praise and recognition as the amazing innovation that your engineers do. And I think if you create a spotlight from it from the top down, that will inspire people to work on remediation activities. Because a lot of times when you build, you're moving forward, and we'll get back to it at some point in time. Plan those sprints, plan those project activities that go back and fix things up the way they need to be, especially when you're operating at scale and growing like we are. And lastly, I want to point out some of the benefits of the FinOps Foundation. It's an opportunity to be in contact with your peers in the industry. There are approximately 85,000 practitioners who are affiliated with the FinOps Foundation. It allows you to stay current with best practices. And since this is a relatively new discipline, we're all contributing to developing the state of the art. There are education and certification opportunities, and it is a fantastic place to find well-qualified partners, people, and software offerings to help you support your organization. And with that, we'll turn it back to Dan.
Thanks, Mike. That's fantastic. Really interesting stuff to go through. So that kind of brings us now forward to questions and answers. And we've got a few questions here to go through. And if everyone's joining me back, what I would say, if anyone's out there and has got any questions, please feel free to add some more, and hopefully we can get through as many as we can. So, first question, I'll probably kick off kind of responding to this, and then if you can all chip in afterwards and see what you think. But the first one we had was, what would you say are the main pros and cons of going on your own or working with a FinOps partner? I'll go first. I'm the one with sales director in my title, so you can take the health warning with it. But typically, what we see when we're talking to organisations they've gone with themselves, the key differences are, I mean, first and foremost, we often reach out to people who are having struggling to get that visibility of where the spend's going because you're on your own. Mike mentioned about tagging, getting the tagging standards right, getting the tagging standards to match your organization structure. That can be a challenge. I think there's not many organizations that we work with that can hand on heart say the tagging is perfect, therefore that visibility is there. And working with a partner means somebody can come to the table and give you the dashboards and the information you need, within weeks rather than you having to build all those tagging standards out. So that's one of the key practicalities. The other is probably just the sort of sheer number of recommendations you tend to get with from if you're working on your own, you're working with the native tools, they do a good job. But typically maybe 70 playbooks you might see in a native tool, whereas you'd see 300 plus within a kind of a partner's solution. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of benefits from my perspective, but I could sit here and probably take the rest of the time doing selling. So I don't know if anyone else wants to chip in on the kind of benefits of kind of build your own, going on your own versus working with a partner.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll take a shot at it if I may. Oftentimes you don't know what you don't know. And somebody who's been there and done that uh, can help accelerate the process. As I mentioned, I've been in the FinOps space, cloud FinOps space for 10 years. The first couple of years were a lot of learning and ramping up and working through that learning curve. If you've got the time, bless you. Most organizations don't. And finding that partner to work with who can help accelerate your journey, bring their experience to the table is it's just fantastic to have. It's something I wish I had a long time ago.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think so. I'd say similar. If I sort of boil down what Mike just said, it's expertise. It brings capacity to actually do it that you might not have internally as well, and speed of execution. I think the only thing I would add is sometimes, and it depends on the culture of your organization and so on, but sometimes it's just external validation. It's one thing a finance guy or girl coming along and saying, "Hey, we should do this." Talking to technical people about things that they technically don't know the detail of too much. They know the pricing, but not the technical. It's another thing when you've got a third party coming in who does that for a living, saying this is the right approach and this is the way we should go. So that's it. The obvious benefit if you go on your own is you're not going to pay anyone. But that's a decision for everyone. I'm sure we'll come on to talk about kind of what extent the savings may or may not be and so on. But I guess that would be the other thing for internal.
Yeah, I actually, so it's to build on what both of you said, kind of combine it and look at it from the kind of the point of view you just started with, Steve, is if you go your own, it is you're not paying somebody else to do it. So you save that cost, but you talked about the velocity, the speed, the time to savings kind of is not even really a measurement, but maybe it should be for these kinds of things because yeah, you're not going to pay somebody to help you get these savings and set up your FinOps practices, but how much are you losing by not achieving savings more quickly by not paying somebody? And also I think Mike might have alluded to it as well. The people that are going to be your team to implement, if you do it yourself, to implement FinOps practices, they're going to have other priorities. So they're while it may seem like a high priority for the company to save money, all of the people that have to take a part of their day away and learn something new about FinOps to start achieving savings or to do something to advance that to get those to achieve those savings is going to that's not going to be as high on their priority list to accomplish as the rest of their day job.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. We'll hopefully we answered that one. I'll move on to the next question. Mike Carr, if you don't mind leading on this one, I'll read it out, and then maybe Steve can chip in and then go that way. So, What role do finance leaders play in long-term FinOps maturity, and how can they lead that journey? I mean, we've covered a lot of it, but yeah, just a bit more flavor around that, I guess.
No, it's an excellent question. I think one, as I mentioned before, teach the engineers where they live on the income statement and how their decisions impact margins. Every architectural decision, development decision, and operational decision is, in fact, a purchasing decision and has the ability to impact your cost structure. And most engineers don't even realize that at the end of the day. They want to cut code, they want to make awesome and amazing features. Have those things, I think Mike mentioned it, the unit economics. If you have a demand driver, like for us in our credit card group is, cost per thousand transactions, and you have OKRs and targets set at the GM level, which are then cascaded down to the business unit, you now have a measurable. And one of the things that we do in our forecasting and planning and budgeting is with our demand drivers, we separate the influence of the demand driver apart from the influence of unit cost. So we can understand, are we overspending against budget due to doing more business, which is the best reason in the world, or do we have a unit cost problem and we have to go talk to the engineers? And developing that maturity around that is incredibly important to understanding and driving a good program. And again, it's not about, I'm going to use the word and it might be out of context, it's not about being cheap and having the lowest spend, it's about delivering the most business value. So make sure you're approaching projects and features and functions and capabilities through that lens. And I think you'll have a much more productive conversation.
Really good. Steve?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. If I think back to some of the things that both Mike said on the way through, Mike B talked about, just driving cost consciousness. Mike R, you just talked about education there. And obviously the understanding of cost to serve. I think the key thing for finance leaders is to have that conversation in the way that Mike R laid it out in his slides. And your business might be, a different type of business, but fundamentally, don't lead on cost. What you need your organization believing is that you're there to help and support the growth of the business, and that's your primary aim. But you want to do that in a sensible, cost-conscious way. The last thing you want is people thinking that the only reason you're talking to them is because you want the lowest cost option and you want to save money. So it's about finding that balance in the messaging, I think, and obviously that flows through the finance team and the different ways and interactions that they'll have with the engineers and other technical teams.
Brilliant. Anything else to add, Mike?
The finance leaders, they have a different view of the business than technology and the business people, the product owners. So having that input as a constant in the development of a FinOps practice will help it keep it focused on what you're trying to do. Like, yes, we want to achieve savings. And we want to do things in a financially prudent way. But yes, we are trying to run a business here. We want to grow the business. And so that may require laying out some costs first, where it may not seem cost effective at first. And finance will have that kind of view into the future of the business.
Excellent. Well, I don't think I can add much more to what's already been said. So we'll move on to what at the moment is looking like the last question. But if anyone does have a question and they want to add it in, do it now. So I'll probably come to you, Mike B, first on this one. So what is the typical amount of saving that people can expect, from a, say, year 1, year 2 on a FinOps program? We'll hold you to account on this, Mike.
Right. Everybody wants this in a contract. Yeah. It is obviously going to be different. Depends on maturity in the cloud and maturity of FinOps practices. But we typically can see 25 to 40 or even 50% savings available. We've been doing this for a long time. We know where to go after things first, and what quick wins are achievable and actually quick. And so we can typically achieve half of the available savings within the first 12 months. So if you're talking about a potential of 40 or 50% total savings, being able to achieve 20% savings in the first year is a significant chunk out of your cloud bill. And I think finance leaders and CEOs, anybody would take that kind of reduction in their costs.
Brilliant. Mike Harmon, you living and breathing it. You don't obviously have to give away anything specifically to Nubank, but general figures, that kind of stuff. Where do you
Generally
think?
speaking, if you read the Forrester and the Gartner reports, they say roughly 30% of cloud spend is wasted. So I think that's a good place to start your calibration and get an understanding. But I also want to stress that cloud FinOps from the engineer seat, the hands-on keyboard engineer seat, there's a level of professional risk going on. And the reason I say that is if you look at, we're an AWS shop. If you look at compute, you go up 100% or down 50% when you change sizes in an instance family. And you get a message saying something's over provisioned for compute and you're not utilizing it, so you're going to step down. You're asking somebody to take production resources and bring them down by 50%. Expect a lot of testing, a lot of validation and whatnot leading up to that. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is when people say, oh, I've got a report and here's where the savings are, when can I have it? It's not that simple. And the amount of savings is, like I said, roughly in the 30% range, going by the very large popular reports. But the timing of the savings, you need to have empathy for the engineer from his or her perspective that it may not be immediate. There are things that we have two different classes or two different types of approach for cleaning up resources. Things that don't impact production, like a very old snapshot and things that can impact production. And they have different timetables for each. And it's really important to have that bifurcation to set expectations on your end as to when you can actually achieve those savings. Because again, your savings projects have to be mixed in with all the other priorities and things you have going on in your business. And I think that's important to take that into account.
Brilliant, really good points. Anything you wanted to add to that, Steve? I know you're probably on your journey yourself, so maybe
Yeah, I
not.
mean, I would probably just if I summarize the sort of bookends of it, where my business was 2-3 years ago, where people were able to just spin up their own environments, they had no kind of incentive or reason to take them down again when they weren't needed. They could do it however they wanted to. I think if you're in that space, you're just starting out and you're on purely pay-as-you-go pricing, then doing the basics probably gets you, you're in that zone that might be talked about where maybe it's up to 50%. If you're, Mike R talked earlier about, hey, I'm looking at, is our code written efficiently so that when it runs, it's consuming the optimum amount of CPU. When you get to that stage, to bookend it, if you're at that end, you're probably looking at that final 1, 2, 3%. But hey, if you're a SaaS business, you might have 10, 15%, 20% of your revenue going on cloud costs. So even that final 2 or 3% is still, well worth it. So they're the two sort of bookends. But if you're listening to this and you're right at the start of that journey, then definitely the 30, 40, 50% is there to be aimed for.
Brilliant. Well, look, what I like the most about this now is that in the interest of demonstrating how efficient we are and optimizing people's time, I think I'm not the finance expert here, but I think we're getting close to 10% saving on people's time today. We can give them 6 minutes back. So it's left for me to sort of say a massive thank you to our brilliant speakers, Steve Mitchell, Mike Boudreau, and Mike Rosenberg. I think you will agree, shared some incredibly valuable and practical advice. And of course, a huge thanks to everyone that's joined and submitted some questions as well. The big takeaway for me is getting control and gaining control of your cloud spend is absolutely achievable. So we're going to be in touch with you the next few days. We'd love to have a chat with you and discuss how maybe we can help you with your FinOps journey. In the meantime, it just leaves me to say enjoy the rest of your day and thanks and goodbye. So many thanks. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Take care.